getting into linguistics and semantics and stuff, exclusive is an adjective, so it modifies a noun, but it can be used as an adverb exclusively, which modifies a verb. And so honestly, the exclusively or exclusive part is the transition. You talked about transitions. It is the transition. You're in the talking, casual dating phase, and then you're moving toward relationship. The exclusivity is what's in the middle. It's the catalyst that's driving you to that. What's up, everybody? You've tuned in to Just Drawz, the podcast that explores hot topics and various experiences among same-gender loving Black men. In each episode, we offer raw, vulnerable, and stripped-down perspectives to give voice to our frequently overlooked population. Here, we don't just scratch the surface, we dive deep, peeling back the layers of our experiences as well as heteronormative stereotypes. Let's get into this week's episode.
Welcome to Just Drawz, the podcast where we keep it vulnerable,
raw, stripped down,
and authentically just us. I'm Jeff.
And I'm your boy Darius, aka DMC.
So grab a drink.
Or make sure to keep your hands on the wheel.
Readjust your support.
And let's get into it.
All right. So tonight we are coming from... Not here we go.
Here we go. Yeah.
All right. We're coming from Lucy's advice stand from the Peanuts.
Okay. Lucy was not my favorite. She was a bitch, but...
she was.
She was a bitch, but you know, hey, that's fine. Psychiatrist is in 5 cents.
Right. Okay. All right. How was your week?
The week's been pretty good so far. It's just been a lot, with work, but things are going to slow down really, really soon. So I'm excited about that. What about yours?
Pretty good. Work was busy for me a couple of weeks ago, and now it's kind of slowed down now that this project is launched. So now I'm basically just kind of in, maintenance mode. So I just got to keep things running until something new comes up. So I'm kind of relieved, especially going into the summer. So, now it's kind of time to just kind of relax a little bit and ease into the next season.
The next work season, right?
Yes. Yeah. The next work season, basically. Yeah. We're about to be at the end of the quarter. So then things kind of reset after that. And then we start a new year, and then things kind of pick up again once, budgets get approved and money starts to get spent.
Okay. Got you. All right. Dope. Dope.
All right. Cool beans. So, tonight, let's go ahead and get the show started. So what's been happening this week in Twitter is something that I wanted to bring up on the show. So there's been a lot of talk and debate about talking stages when it comes to dating. And this caught my interest because a lot of the discussion was, how long should a talking stage last? Does a talking stage even exist at all? Should it be 1 year? Should it be 3 to 6 months? All of those good things, and a lot of people going back and forth about what a talking stage is. So I felt like this would be a good topic for us to talk about because, we've been in different situations and stages of dating. And I feel like we're experienced enough to kind of bring some knowledge to this space. And
we're going to see. We'll see in a minute. Yeah.
All right. So I feel like we can break this down into 6 different stages of the dating, courting, relationship thing. So we're going to list those out and just talk about those for a little bit, and then we'll start going into some talking points.
All right, let's go.
Before we get started, though, I want to make sure that, we establish that this is from the thinking that the listeners are coming from a monogamous desire here. We're not getting into poly relationships because that just kind of gets things a little bit crazy. I don't have time for that tonight. We're going to keep it real simple.
Yeah. And if you want to learn a little bit more about the ethical non-monogamy, we did an episode about that in season 2. So
We did.
you can always go back and take a look or listen at that episode and see what our thoughts were about that.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's get into it. So 6 different stages. So one is the talking stage. So that's going to be your initial connection. You're getting to know each other. You're doing some flirting. There's some texting. There's some little bit of hanging out, meeting at the coffee shop. We're just seeing what it could be. So I think of this stage as like just the initial communication. We're just setting the tone, trying to see if we're even going to be anything. Because it could go either way. It's kind of like relationship watch.
Okay.
Like a tornado warning or tornado watch.
So it's just
like
the
conditions
watch.
are set where, a relationship or dating could actually start, but it doesn't necessarily mean that dating is imminent. Like
So is the
warning?
I've always gotten that confused. Is the warning more intense than the watch or
Yes,
vice
the
versa?
warning is more intense. The
Okay.
watch just means, hey, look out. We've got crazy conditions outside. It could be a storm or a tornado brewing up. Watch just means that. Just be on the lookout. Warning means it's imminent. It's about to happen.
Okay.
Get ready. Gird your loins, batten down your hatches.
So that would be dope if one of these was a warning. Like we had the watch phase and then we have the warning phase. But we'll see. Go ahead and continue with point 2.
All right. So point 2 would be just your casual dating. So that's just you're going out on dates, dates as an action, not as the stage. So you're going out, just going to see what the chemistry is. Going out to eat. There may be some physical intimacy. There may be some casual sex. No expectation that this is going to be exclusive. It's just that we're going through the act of dating, and you're going to be doing the act of dating on these other stages as well, because you're still going to be getting to know your person and going out and just seeing how they vibe.
Okay.
All right. So after casual dating, now we're into the stage of exclusive dating. So now you've kind of cut your roster down. You could have been talking to other people in the casual dating stage, but now you're at a point where, hey, I like you, you like me. I don't want to call you my boyfriend, girlfriend at this time, but I only want to see you right now. And then once we get past this stage, then we're in the official relationship. We're naming what our relationship is. We're calling each other our things, our partner, our boyfriend, our girlfriend. We're putting that we're defining it now. Because now we're in that official thing. We're committed. We're exclusive. I can now go public with this now if I want to. I can tell my friends. I can go on Instagram and be like, hey, this is my dude. That's
because that's where it's real.
That's where when
it's
you
real, put it
now,
on social media and you buy them a Cinnabon.
Yeah. So that's basically, and I kind of merged this together into the official relationship, which is stage 4, because at that point now, y'all are committed to each other. It's going to be a thing. That's when it starts to get some roots. You're traveling. You're going to see each other's family. You're deciding on who you're going to spend Christmas with, who you're going to spend Thanksgiving with, where New Year's is going to happen, all that stuff. You may have like a drawer at their house or a section in the closet. Now it's getting real, or it's gotten real at this point.
Okay.
All right. So then after that, you got 5. That's your LTR, your long-term relationship. Y'all been together for a minute. That drawer has maybe turned into a lease that you signed. Y'all have moved in. You're sharing bills. There may even be a bank account that's being shared between the two of you. Now you've kind of matured that official relationship into getting into that next and last stage, which is the engagement / marriage / the end game, whatever the end game is for the two of you. So at that point, if it's going to be a marriage or some type of legal commitment, then, now you're deciding, Whose house are we going to live in? Are we going to get a mortgage together? We've set a date. We've sent out save the dates. We're making that thing a thing, and then that's the end of it. And then we're going to be a couple. We're going to ride off into the sunset unless, something tragic happens. Hopefully it
Right, right,
won't.
right,
But
right.
if you made it through all of these steps, you're probably in a good space to keep that relationship going.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So now that we've established what those 6 stages are,
And what the levels to this shit is.
yes, what the
Mm-hmm.
levels to all of this is,
Mm-hmm.
let's go back to what kind of started this off for me. So what does it mean when someone says me and John Doe, Jamal Doe, Jericho Doe,
Shahid Jet Doe.
Jahid Doe?
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean when me and Mr. Doe are talking?
So you're
So
asking
what would you
what
say
does that
that
mean
is
to
for
me?
you? Yeah, what
So
would that mean for you?
okay. So I think the definition that you gave earlier was pretty spot on, that it's texting back and forth, it's some phone calls. There's a lot of inquiry during that initial talking phase. So questions about what's your favorite color? What
Hmm.
type of food do you like to eat? What your family structure is like? Maybe as you continue there, you get into a little bit deeper questions of, what was something that you learned from your last relationship, or when was your last
Hmm.
relationship? What things were triggers for you, stuff like that. So yeah, it's that real getting to know you phase where everything that you might have wanted to know about that person prior to physically seeing them, or if you're meeting them online, that
Hmm.
you're actually really interrogating that, and you're really trying to see what is there, what sort of substance is there. What about you?
Yeah, I'm totally with that. To me, that's where we're testing the waters. We're asking those questions. We're getting the top, bottom, side, verse, all of that out the way so that we can kind of figure out, okay, let's calibrate on what we want. And if, this is a thing, I'm testing or trying to figure out, do we have common interest? Do we have similar things that we like to do? Do we know certain people? Do we have similar goals? And
Mm-hmm.
not, real heavy conversation, just kind of keeping it real light. Because at this stage, to me, we are just going out and having those light, easy breezy lunches, dinners, and that could, again, it could lead to something a little bit more physical, but there's still no expectation that there will be a date 2. We're just testing the water, and if it gets to the point that we are at date 2 or date 3, we're still talking to other people. We're still out there meeting other folks, talking to other people at the same time. And since we're both able to do that, then there shouldn't be any instances of jealousy or hurt feelings.
So you would consider, if you've gone on date 2 with someone, you would still consider that the talking phase?
I would say that it's still the talking phase because I don't think that me having 2 dates with Jahid and
Mm-hmm.
me having 2 dates with Jason
Mm-hmm.
constitute that we're out of the talking stage just yet.
Okay. When you asked that question, I kind of thought to myself, and as you were talking, I was like, okay, you know what? I was like, I feel like the first date is still considered the talking phase for me. And I think that, all right, after that first date, because we have to have some conversation and some
Mhm.
dialogue after that first date, if there's mutual interest there. So if there's mutual interest, then it's like, okay, yeah, I need to have that conversation with you about what you thought about me
Mhm.
physically. What, would you like to even go on a second date? Maybe second date, I would still consider talking, but by the time we've gotten to third date, I'm in more of the casual
Yeah.
dating phase than I am the talking phase. So honestly, if I had to put like some sort of hard and fast sort of line of demarcation or line of delineation on it, it would
Mhm.
be that, okay, after the first date and we're setting up second date and we're talking about hanging a little bit more, then now we're getting a little bit more into casual.
Yeah. I feel like by date 3,
Mm-hmm.
because to me 2 dates doesn't really give it to you. By
Okay.
date 3, you should probably really know if this is going to be something that I want to continue on this path. Otherwise, it's just kind of like you're wasting your time because you've had 3 opportunities to ask the big questions, and y'all haven't fallen out about those.
Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
hadn't fallen out about anything in those three dates, you haven't crashed
Mm-hmm.
and burned yet.
Mm-hmm.
So you should be trying to figure out that this is a person that I can progress with or not. Otherwise, to me, you're kind of wasting your time. So if I'm on third date with Jahid,
Mm-hmm.
I should be able to tell myself at that point, be like, you know what, this guy, I don't think it's going to be a thing. I need to
Mm-hmm.
let him go and
Mm-hmm.
move on, and then I'm back to Jason, who I may not have had date 2 yet or date 3 with yet,
Mm-hmm.
and then I can make that determination with Jason. But
Okay.
we're still, as far as I'm concerned, dating. I'm still in the talking age era with those folks.
Okay. Okay. So close to the same thing, maybe
Yeah,
just a little bit, when we start getting into dating and there's the actual physicality of it or the physical nature of it, then I start to lean a little bit more towards casual, but I'm sure we'll
yeah,
get into that phase in a little bit.
yeah. I don't. To me, I just feel like it shouldn't take more than 3 dates. I just,
Hmm.
yeah,
Hmm.
I don't want to beat that over and over again. I just
Hmm.
feel like 3 days should be your time to,
Hmm.
shit or get off the pot, pretty
Yeah,
much.
gotcha.
And so that kind of leads into what my next question would have been, which was how long the talking stage should last. So,
I think
but
that's a good question, and I think that's something that has to be negotiated between
mhm,
you and the person that you're in that stage or phase with. I've been here plenty of times where we've been talking for months, and it's like, okay, where are we going with this? We need to transition into something else, besides just conversation and potentially going out every now and again. We need to do something. And
yeah,
so I think that definitely that needs to be negotiated, because it could be that you're at a space where there's a lot going on and you're making space for that other person, but it's not the level of time that you would like to put into it. And so it's like, okay, that phase needs to last just a little bit longer because I have interest. I want to move forward with you, or I want to see where this goes, but I just have a lot going on and I can't devote all of that. So if you're willing to hang in there with me, this wraps up soon. Just like we were talking earlier, like, okay, look, we're coming out of some rough periods, but I don't know. That's always kind of tricky for me.
well, I remember when we talked about dating before, it seems
Hmm.
like you're more
I'm a
time
time dater. Hmm.
based, and
Yep.
I'm more of a
Experiential.
milestone based type of
Hmm.
person. So for me, I feel like the third date is the milestone that I need to be able to move forward from out of the talking stage, because
Hmm.
I feel like it's too much to me based on the definitions that I gave or the explanations that I set for the stages, because this is initial connection and initial communication, we should be beyond it by the third date. And
Hmm.
I think that a lot of people have actually moved into the casual dating stage. They just don't want to say that. They want to say that I'm in the talking stage, but they're doing everything else that you
Hmm.
would be doing in the casual dating stage. They're just not using that terminology.
Yeah. Yeah. I think talking also is synonymous with enjoying each other's company.
Hmm.
And then when we get into casual, then now we're being a little bit more intentional with how we're moving.
Okay.
Yeah. Do
Yeah.
you think well, having said that, do you think that there are people who really just kind of get stuck in that phase, in that talking phase? Or let me add something to that. Do you think that it's people that are just using the nomenclature incorrectly?
I think it's more about not using the correct term. I
Hmm.
think that, because we do so much to avoid calling a thing a thing.
Beloved.
And we'd rather just say we're talking instead of saying that we're dating.
Mm-hmm.
And
I
I
can't
think
wait to get into some delineations with that too, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
because remember when in a previous episode we were talking about how, people don't think they know that they're not committed to someone else and they have the ability to go date other folks, but then they don't. And then they end up focusing in on one person, and then they're thinking that that person is focused on them when they're not, because they're juggling other folks at the same time. So when they find out that the other person has these other people on the roster, then they're all kind of in their feelings about it when they shouldn't be, because there was no expectation of commitment or, exclusivity, so.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So I think it's all about not using the correct term for me.
That's what I
And
think
that's
it
why
is
it just
too.
kind of looked odd when, someone's on, Twitter talking about the talking stage should last, months and months. And I'm like, huh? By that time, y'all are dating. Now, unless it took y'all 2 or 3 months to actually go on the second and third date. Now, at that time, I'm like, it kind of, maybe that goes back to what you were saying, where someone like hangs in there. But to me, I should not be able to go on a date with you in May, and then the next date isn't until early July. That doesn't make sense to me.
Okay.
We're not that busy.
Yeah. Now, if you're in the same area, yeah, then I can definitely understand that. But like, if you're
Yeah,
doing
yeah.
what about if you're doing distance?
I don't do distance.
Okay.
So, but I guess the thing with that would be, again, too, it's going to be like milestone based. But in that situation, if it's distance, then you should be spending a lot more time communicating, using the internet, using the phone, texting. There should be a lot more high contact, talking, not necessarily in person physical experiences. But you should be using that time, since you're not physically together, to just get to know each other and ask those questions.
There is a couple that I know of, and I thought this was one of the dopest ideas that I had ever heard. They're not in the same area. They live in different states, and they actually are a couple. But I think it works
Mhm.
in this case too if you're trying to move past the talking stage into the casual dating stage, or even to the exclusive dating stage or phase. They would talk to each other. They talk to each other all the time, but they would talk to each other and say, all right, this weekend, you're off, I'm off. So
Mhm.
let's plan to go see a movie. And what they would do is they would coordinate in each of their respective cities the time to go see a movie. And so like they want like you would go to a movie at
Mhm.
3 o'clock your time, and then it might be maybe 3:15 in my city, but we're going around the same time. So they would choose a time to go to the movies and go see the same movie. And then what they would do after the movie, they would go out to eat somewhere, wherever they wanted to go. And so they would get on the phone and they would actually have a date where they talked about the movie and all of that stuff. And I was like, that is really dope. That is a really dope
Yeah.
way to engage with each other and not have to physically be in each other's presence, but still be intimate in that way with each other.
Yeah. Yeah. That's actually an excellent idea.
Mm-hmm.
So, hopefully our listeners can, use that themselves, steal it
Yeah,
from them
yeah,
folks.
yeah. Bite it.
Yeah, yeah, that's pretty neat. Very creative.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So, moving on. So what happens when someone catches feelings early? When they move on from the talking stage into the casual dating stage?
So, are you asking if, let's say, you catch feelings, and you're asking how the other person, or how you should proceed with the other person if you've caught feelings, or vice versa?
Someone. So this can go either way. However you want to
Okay.
answer it.
Yeah. See, I think the answer is going to be a little bit different depending on the direction of the feelings here. So
Mhm.
if I've caught feelings for somebody and I'm not sure if the other person feels that way, I usually will express that. I'll express that, okay, hey, you know what? I'm really enjoying you. I'm enjoying your company. I'm enjoying your conversation, and I would like to continue to see where this goes. A lot of times that scares people off. And I've
Mm-hmm.
heard from people that, friends that when I've said that to them, they said, oh, well, you need to kind of lay back and don't say everything and don't mention everything. Sometimes you just gotta play it cool or play hard, play hard again. And I'm not that dude. I'm the guy that's like, look, what it is, what you see is what you get. And I want to put that out there so at least you don't have you're not second guessing, or you're
Mm-hmm.
not going, oh, well, I didn't even know that, I never knew that. That happened to me a couple of times in the past where I was talking to somebody, and I didn't say that I was feeling this way, but then later when I expressed that, they were like, oh, well, I didn't know that you felt that way. And I was like, how did you not know that? And so from that moment on, I said, okay, you know what, I'm never going to not share what I'm feeling. If it's the reverse, though, where the other person has caught feelings, which has happened a couple of times as well, it's interesting, because if there's mutual interest there, then I'm rolling with it. I'm rocking with it. If I'm not quite there yet, then I've had to kind of say, okay, I'm not quite there yet, and I'm still at this space right here. But I always try to explain why I'm at that space, what it is that has given me pause. And 9 times out of 10, it's not even the person that I'm interested or I'm having the conversations with. It's not that person. It's usually me. Sometimes it is that person. Sometimes the vibe is just not there. But a lot of times it's me. It's like, okay, I'm dealing with some things. I'm in some things right now. I'm talking to multiple people and I'm trying to see how things go. So I don't want to say that I feel this specific way, but I do
Mm-hmm.
feel, this way. I feel like this. I enjoy this. I enjoy that about you, etc. So, have you had that
Yeah.
happen to you before?
I mean, I've been on both sides of that
Mm-hmm.
question. So I will say that if I'm the person that catches the feelings first, I have no problem telling the other guy, hey, this is where I'm at.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm, again, let's shit or get off the pot. Like, if I know that I
Mm-hmm.
like you, I'm gonna let you know that this is where I'm at. And I have to do that and just put it out there in the universe. And you either accept it or you don't. You're either with me
Mm-hmm.
or you're not. And if you're not, I've already calculated in my head how I've prepared myself for the worst, being that you don't feel the same. This could be the end of it all, or, I'm going to just be on pause until you get to where you need to be, or where I would like for you to be, rather. So I have no problem, expressing that. And that being said, if it's the other way around, I have no problem, saying, hey, I'm not quite there, but things seem to be on that path, or, they're not, or this is why they're not. And these are the things that I need to work on for myself, but I'm going to let you know. I'm going to let you know either way, where we're going. And I'm going to set for myself, a mental timeline and date when I need to be able to make that decision. So I don't want anyone to be sitting up waiting on me,
And spinning their
um,
wheels here.
spinning their wheels. I'm wasting their time. I'm wasting my time. I'd rather just move on, or, move move on or move off of that,
Or move
and,
away.
let's,
Yep.
yeah, move away,
Mm-hmm.
or we're gonna go ahead and proceed, because I've wasted my time before, waiting on something to happen and waiting on things on my end to happen, and it didn't work out. And, the guy's time was wasted. I wasted my time, and, it just wasn't worth anything in the
Mm-hmm.
end. I had some good experiences, but, I should have been able to say, hey, I don't think this is going to work, a lot sooner than I did.
Do you feel like you're better about saying that now? That it's not going to
Yes,
work?
because I've had the
Mm-hmm.
experience, to do that. Before, I didn't really have that experience. So not knowing how to, like, do, or not knowing how to be in that situation or how I would react in that situation, reflecting back on how things ended, I can use that knowledge to be like, hey, I don't want this to happen again. This is what I need to do so that I'm not in this situation and I'm not putting someone in that situation.
I had a question for you.
Okay.
I started thinking about it as you were talking about that. And if you've had a situation where you didn't feel the same way as the other person, and let's say it was a situation where the vibe was not necessarily there, or that person wasn't giving you all of what you needed in enough to move forward. Did you ever offer the "I think we'd be better as friends" line? And then I have a part
I
2 to that.
I have not, because when I look back, when there's times when I should have said that and did not.
So you
Yeah,
think you should have been friends with that person
I should have been friends with that person instead of making
instead of
it.
that? Okay.
And
Okay.
yeah, instead of
I know
it
I know who you're talking about
becoming
too.
a
Okay.
you know casual or exclusive dating situation. Yeah.
Okay. So then in my second part to that is, in those situations where you say, "Well, I think we'd be better as friends," do you actually progress as a friend with that person?
So I can't answer that question because I've not
Mhm.
been put in that situation again. I only
Okay.
have now the tools to actually react to that situation again, but I haven't
Mhm.
been able to actually put those actions in action. Um, so I would say that I think I would have the ability to do it, but also what I've learned is that a lot of people don't want to be friends.
Thank you. Thank you. That's where I was going with that.
Yeah, the
Like let's
people don't
stop
want to
let's
be
stop the
friends.
lie. Yeah, let's stop the
They
lie of,
want
well, let's be friends.
Yeah, they want the relationship that they want from you, and they don't want anything less. So they'll say, if you tell them, "Hey, I want to be friends. I don't want to be in this relationship with you," they're going to cloud up and rain or pack their bag, take their bag, bat, ball, and go home because now that they're not getting what they want, they don't need you anymore, and that's their right to do. They have, if they're not getting out of you what they want, they're perfectly fine with being like, "Hey, I'm going to bow out. I'm exiting your life. No harm, no foul. We don't need to be together. You don't want to be with me in that way. I want this, and I can't have it. I don't want you dangling this carrot in front of me every time we hang out, and I'm never going to get what I want."
So, yeah, now that I understand the person on the receiving end of that, but the other thing that I'm talking about too is the person on the giving end of that, the one that says, "Oh, I think that we should just be better as friends," or "I'd like to just be friends," but they don't want to be friends. Like friends to me is, okay, if I'm dating someone or I'm interested in someone and we're talking, and then we finally, or he finally says, "Well, I don't really see anything as far as vibe with you, so I'd rather just be friends." And I accept that. Okay, cool. That's fine. We can just be
Mhm.
friends. No big deal. Cool. But then that would mean that now you have to function, or that you should be, since it's what you said, you should be functioning in terms of a friend. So the conversation and the call shouldn't stop. The hanging out shouldn't necessarily stop. But my experience has been that when people say friends, let's just be friends, it's another way out. Like it's another way
Okay.
to just go, okay, no, I don't want to really have anything else to do with you, versus saying something like, "Oh, let's just be cordial."
Okay. So your interpretation of this is when they say friends, let's just be friends. Like you're expecting them to still kind of do some of the things that y'all used to do outside of the lovey dovey stuff. Y'all still gonna go
If
out to
yeah,
eat. Y'all
if
still
that's
gonna
what you
hang out like
said,
y'all were friends.
if that's what you said, and if I accept that.
Okay.
Now, if it's a Deborah Cox and RL situation, like we can't be friends, and I'm
Mhm.
just like, we're done, then that's fine. But if I say, okay, well, that's cool, yeah, we can still, be cool, we can still be friends, but then you never hear from that person ever again,
So then they're saying friends, but they
They
mean
don't mean friends.
cordial, because there
Mm-hmm.
are going to be levels to friendship, just like there's levels to any
Mm-hmm.
other relationship, just like in this dating stages thing.
Mm-hmm.
So that means that, hey, when I see you at the club, at the club,
Uh-huh.
at the spot, at Applebee's or whatever, I can speak, I can wave, and there's no hard feelings.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we're not gonna be, going out to the football game. We're not gonna be, I'm not gonna invite you over to my house for game night. That's not what they mean at all.
Yeah. And see, that's where I wish that we, and I'm saying, using we generally, we were a little bit clear, or a little bit more clear on what that is. Because it's like, no, you don't really want to be friends. Like, let's not use that term. Let's just say, okay, hey, this is not working. We can still be cordial. We can
Mhm.
like each other's posts on social media and keep it moving.
Yeah, and it's not to say that that's not possible, but I
True.
mean, I
Very
think
true.
it may
Very
be
true.
it could be different, because am I in a situation where I've had sexual experiences with people that I don't see as boyfriend, but I can still talk and text them? Yes, I do have
Mm-hmm.
that. So it's
Mm-hmm.
not just a one size fits all type of situation. It's still going to be, depending on those two people and how they want to really interact and, do that. But everyone, and majority of folks are not wired for that. There's kind of, it's got to be all or nothing. And the
Mm-hmm.
friends thing is just, yeah,
A
I
way out.
don't not like you. It's my way out.
Mm-hmm.
But we're never going to be hanging out at my house watching movies, anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Yeah. So I'd love for us to evolve to a space where we can actually go, okay, no, let's just be cordial, because they, the
Hmm.
quote, don't want to hurt somebody's feelings. But I
So
digress.
when you're presented in that situation, do
Hmm.
you call that out now, or do you say, "Hey, now when you say friends, define friends"? Or are you just meaning we're going to be cordial to each other?
I have done that before, where I have said, okay, do you actually mean friends, or do you actually mean cordial?
Hmm.
And that's the English linguistics, trained person in me that's like, okay, look, make that plain for me. What is this, or what does this mean? But there have been some times where people have said that, and I just kind of went with it. And I'm like, okay, let's see if this is what you mean. Because if you don't contact me anymore, I'm perfectly fine with that. But if you do contact me, that's fine. I met a person that was like, I'm really not looking for a relationship right now, even though things were where the energy was good, I thought. And so he was like, well, I'm not really looking for a relationship right now. And it was like, okay, cool. And he was like, but you're dope. And I definitely still want to, hang out and kick it and all of that. And I said, okay. And so we might have talked maybe twice. We talked twice maybe after that. And he was like, yeah, we got to get up and hang out soon. And the last message I sent was, okay, well, cool. You just let me know when you're free. And I haven't heard anything since then. So I'm still waiting to see when he's free, and but I don't know. I think that that's a situation. That specific situation was he just kind of got busy with some things, and I might get something. I might get breadcrumbed later,
Mm,
but I don't know.
okay. Oh well, that's unfortunate. But again,
Yeah, well, hey,
people need to say what they mean
and
and mean what they
mean
say.
what they say. Say it like you
Hmm.
mean it.
Say it
Shout
like
it
you
out.
mean it. All right, Wendy.
That's right. How you doing?
All right. So, for those that are out here that are dating multiple people at once in that casual stage before they move on to making it exclusive, how, when is the time that they need to make it exclusive for everyone? Like, they're like cutting off that roster, it's thrown away, I've deleted my apps, no more Jacked, no more Grinder, no more Growler, no Hornet or any of the other apps.
Wow, I haven't heard Hornet in forever. Are you gonna pull BGC back out?
No, I'm done. Um,
That's an interesting one too. It's for me, I'll say for me is when I've had the conversation with the person that I am interested in, I know that there's mutual interest. I see that there's mutual interest. There's mutual initiated communication,
okay,
all of that. And we have had a conversation about, okay, let's, are you interested in really making this exclusive and seeing where this, are we a couple, kind of thing. If I had to say it a little more simple or simpler, are we a couple? Then that's where I drop everything and I drop everybody. My experience has been the moment that I start to lean toward one person and I'm focused a little bit more and I start to drop the roster and I start to let go of apps and all of this other flirting and stuff that I'm doing, is when it goes left with the person that I'm trying to focus on.
okay,
And so what has happened to me is, in an attempt to safeguard myself from having to start all the way back at ground zero, I usually will hold on to a few things. I'll hold on to a few people. Is that right? No, not necessarily. But
mm,
I'm just at a point where I'm like, okay, I don't want to put all my energy into this and then this completely goes left. And now I'm sitting here like, what the fuck? You know, now I gotta start all over again. And that's
mm,
kind of what happened with my last relationship. When we finally made things official, we were official in my eyes for about 2 months, 2.5 months. And
okay,
then shit hit the fan. And then it was like, okay, well, now what do I do? Besides sit here and lick my wounds for a little bit and then try to get back out here. Like what's happening here? So I was in limbo for a long time trying to
mm.
figure out what I should do. So, but that's just been my experience.
I'll say for me, again, I'm milestone based.
Hmm.
So when I feel like the milestones that I need are getting checked,
Hmm.
and we're going down this arbitrary virtual in my mind's eye list that I have of things that I want or that I see in this person, um, that's when I'm like, okay, I'm ready to lock in and, make this person or, be the one, the only person that I'm interested in talking to, or I'm not interested in, being out there and having the option to talk to other people. This person is the person I want to talk to exclusively, and I can move on. Now, I can understand, you know, having been in the situations that we've talked about before, you want to, hold your cards a little bit closer to the chest, just because how things can work out.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's totally reasonable to me. And I say that as your friend, I definitely understand that. And on the other side, I look at it too, like, okay, the person on the other end, if they're thinking that, oh, well, he's only into me, yeah, it's not fair.
Hmm.
But, at the same time, because things can kind of, mm, like you said, hit the fan at a moment's
Yeah.
notice, and then you
Hmm.
feel like, oh well, I've wasted my time and my energy and my effort and my money, investing into this with this person, and look at what I got. I got nothing. Now that doesn't necessarily mean that it wouldn't have crashed and burned anyway, but
Yeah.
it's just because you put forth the action to eliminate everybody else, and now you don't have anything, and you haven't gotten to that point that you need where you can feel the comfort and safety to let those other people completely go and completely be at a blank slate.
And even in that, and what I'll say too is, in that talking phase or talking stage is where I usually divulge to the person or the people, because you and I have had this conversation probably, gosh, it might be almost a decade now that you and I have had this conversation about dating. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember there was a point where you were like, I can't date multiple people. I don't have your favorite word, the bandwidth to
Mm-hmm.
do that. And I said, well, I'm a little different. I want to date multiple people because then the cream will rise to the top of that, and then I can kind of discard the rest of it. But even in the talking phase, I usually am the one who will say I'm dating, and then I go into the definition. Now, what dating means is I am talking to people, I'm feeling vibes, I'm potentially going out on dates. Now, I don't necessarily have a main person, or I'm not exclusive with anyone, but I am talking to multiple people. Some people, that turns them off. They're
Mm-hmm.
immediately like, okay, well, no, I don't want to do that, because they understand dating to mean there's one person and that's it, and you're
Yeah.
dealing with just that one person. But I always tell them, look, there's a difference between dating and exclusively dating. Exclusively dating means you're it. You're the one that I'm focused on. You're the one that
Right.
I want. Ooh, 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 But
Mm-hmm.
just regular dating is, no, there's some other people that might be in the mix.
And so going back to what we just talked about a little bit
Mm-hmm.
earlier. So when you're dating these multiple people, or when this has been your experience,
Mm-hmm.
these people, I assume, were not local to you. They were
Right.
long distance.
There's been a few that have been local, but and they always get extra, if I had to use the term, points. They
Mm-hmm.
get more, they get a little bit more, they're a little higher up, because I can actually access them, or
Mm-hmm.
access them a little bit better. So, but it doesn't, sometimes I've had it where the people who are local to wherever I am aren't doing any more than the people who are distance. So sometimes I've leaned more toward the distance person, because they have their own thing going on, but they're making that time,
Mm-hmm.
versus people who are local. It's like, we're right here. We can more easily make the time. But so,
Yeah. So I asked that question because to me, it feels like it would be easier to date multiple people if the majority of them, or a good chunk of them, are not local, because
mm-hmm,
then you can kind of like, all right, this person is in Central Time, I'm in Eastern Time. They'll be available for texting and talking during this time. And this person is on Mountain Time, I'm on Pacific Time, so
mm-hmm,
I've got this window of opportunity to talk to that person. So that's where that kind of, to me, makes that a little bit easier
mm-hmm,
versus being in the same geographical area as someone, and having that access and having the ability to assess them a little bit easier.
mm-hmm.
Juggling that can be a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now I have the range. Before I didn't really have the range for it, and that's because like the way that I look at things now is a lot differently. But I
Mm-hmm.
also don't have as much time as I used to.
Yeah.
Um, Between the things that I want to do, just personally, hobbies and things, and just living life and work and trying to get in shape and all these other things, like my bandwidth to juggle multiple people just really isn't like it would have been if I was in my 20s.
Yeah.
And that, is just what it is. And so, my time, I'm a little bit more focused on finding those things that really kind of stand out for me when it comes to, meeting the right person,
Mm-hmm.
and dealing with them. Uh, so yeah, I just don't have time to waste anymore. So my time is precious.
Yeah.
Everyone's
Yeah.
time is precious, but I
Very
feel
true.
like now I just don't have the space to deal with it like I would have before. But I've got the mental capacity and the experience now to handle it a lot better. So now will be the
Mm-hmm.
best time ever for me to do it. It's just that there's just not enough space. There's not enough hours in the day for it. All right. So, talking about those exclusive dating situations. So, this is a question that I don't really have an answer for myself, but you know, I was just thinking, what is the difference between being exclusive and being in a relationship? And to me, it's I don't want to say that it's one and the same because I don't feel like it is, but I feel like the transition point from exclusive and being in a relationship is very close. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't really take a lot to actually jump from one to the other. But it kind of goes into what you were just saying, where, you have if you keep people a little bit closer or you don't like delete all the apps, you got a little in case of emergency group of guys, to talk to. Um, you know, that kind of makes it feel like there's some milestones that you just need from that other person to reach. And then you can transition from that. Okay, now I'm definitely in the relationship now, you know? So I feel like they're so close together, but I do feel like still there's a difference there. I just can't explain it.
So exclusive, getting into linguistics and semantics and stuff, exclusive is an adjective, so it modifies a noun, but it can be used as an adverb exclusively, which modifies a verb. And so honestly, the exclusively or exclusive part is the transition. You talked about transitions. It is the transition. You're in the talking casual dating phase, and then you're moving toward relationship. The exclusivity is what's in the middle. It's the catalyst that's driving you to that. And so for me, when I say I'm exclusively dating, that means we're heading in that direction. Like I don't look at it specifically as its own stage.
Okay.
And so I think that's what helps me kind of navigate that a little bit more. Because if I'm telling somebody I'm exclusively dating, that means, hey, me and this person, we're taking a walk together. We are moving in this direction together. And the next stop on that journey or that road trip or whatever it is, that flight, whatever we're on, whatever mode of transportation, is that relationship.
Okay. All right. That works for me.
Yeah.
Works for me. Okay. So is it important to put a label on the relationship now that we're exclusive, now that we are, a thing? Is it okay? Do we need to define this thing and say this is a thing? And I feel that
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. You go.
Now, I was going to say, I feel like we do because again, I feel like if we do not state the terms and conditions
By which
by which the bylaws and all that stuff, if we don't put a label on it and stamp it and get it notarized, then that just means that we're just all out here all willy nilly. And at any time, the thread could break and then we're not in a relationship anymore. Or we don't have anything. So I think it's important to like really define and say that, hey, we're a relationship. You're my boyfriend. You're my partner. You're my man. I'm your man. I'm your partner. I'm your boyfriend. We need to have that set in stone because that lets us define what the next phase is going to be and what it's going to look like. Because if we are just out all willy nilly, then what are we doing?
I agree with a lot of what you said. I'm in the same chapter, but I might be a little bit on a different page than
Okay.
you. When I think about labels, I think about labels more so as what you need to put on whatever it is for people who are not in whatever it is that you're in. So
Okay.
the label is more so for everybody that is external to your relationship. And that helps them understand where you are. Internally, I don't know that. I think it's important to name what it is, or to call a thing, as we were talking about, or naming what we know. I think it's important for us to have an understanding about what that is. I don't know that necessarily, I can take that back, that it may not be necessarily a name, but we need to have an understanding of what it is that we have. The label is for people who are on the outside that are like, okay, hey, what is this? What are y'all? It's almost like when you go to the store, and I was at a store yesterday. No, was it yesterday? Yesterday or 2 days ago, one of the two. And the store that I was in, I was looking at some clothes, just kind of passing through, and I was looking at some clothes, and the clothes had the tag on it and everything, but there was no price on the tag. Mm-hmm. No prices on any of the tags, and there were no prices above the little turnstile where the clothes were. So I walked away because I was like, well, I like this, but it doesn't have a price on it. And I don't want to have to go through all of the rigmarole to go take this up to the register for somebody to scan it, to tell me what it is, for it to be too fucking expensive, and then me to take it right back out to the rack again. And then if I see something else, I got to do that all over again.
You better than me.
Okay, you see what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to have to do that. No, and I didn't right do that.
Left, right there.
And that's what I'm saying. That's what. Well, yeah, you're gonna just leave it up there. Talking about, oh, okay, well, here you go. Y'all can put this back. No, so I just didn't want to. You don't want to have to do all that. Or if I go to Walmart and I see something, I'm like, oh, this is interesting, and I'm looking at like all of the nutritional facts and stuff on something. I'm gonna look at that price. I'm gonna look for that price. If I don't see a price, it's gonna not make me want it. And I'm just going to put it back. So I think that label in a relationship, if someone knows that you're a couple, or that you two are dating exclusively, or you two are just in a talking phase, then they know how to proceed in that, or they know what boundaries they might need to have in that situation. If you're exclusively dating and you're not trying to purposely take somebody or try somebody, then you're gonna back off. But if you are, you're like, oh well, I don't really care what they doing, I'm gonna go ahead and do it anyway, then you go into it knowing. So I think that labels for me are more so for the people who are not in whatever situation that I'm in with that person.
Okay. Yeah. People that have seen Sinners know that folks don't give a damn about someone being married.
Okay.
Or not. They're still going to try to do what they want to do. So,
yeah, exactly.
That's cute.
Like,
they
don't care. Right. They don't care. Exactly. They don't care. But at least if they know that, then when somebody's ready to beat somebody else's ass, like well, you knew. What was going on,
there should be an expectation that an ass beat may
okay,
may
right.
be
Cheaters
delivered.
Beware,
Cheaters beware.
That is the second callback to that we have had on this podcast this season, I believe. So shout out to Tammy Roman and her quote
exactly team. Her team of investigators that she personally hired, not that she personally hired,
to surveil people.
All right. So one thing about this that, has been, and we kind of talked about this, but as you get to know people in the talking stage and the casual dating stage and things like that, there always seems to me something that comes up later on that would be a difference. So how would one work around differences in a relationship? And that could be just how managing money, cleaning schedules, little small things. I'm not trying to get it, too big or too deep, but, say you've moved in. Now the person that stayed over for like a week, and you realize that they're not the type of person to, pick up after themselves when they go to the bathroom. Like they just leave their drawers on the floor. Or that you may have a pet peeve about the sink being wet, or have the shavings left on the sink, or things like that.
Or the mirror being dirty.
Or the toilet paper going over instead of under. Like little small things like that you don't understand or you don't get until you're in close quarters with someone. So how would a person manage that in a relationship now that they're in it?
I want to flip that on you. I want you to answer that question because you're in a relationship right
I
now.
am.
And how are you all handling those things?
Um, I'll say that haven't really had too many problems
Okay.
when it comes to things like that. Like we're pretty much on the same path. We're both not neat freaks,
Okay.
but
Right.
we don't like things to be like all crazy. Like the bed's gonna get made,
Hmm.
dishes are gonna get washed. They may not get washed, tonight, but they'll probably be in the dishwasher by tomorrow afternoon.
Hmm.
We're okay with that. Now I have, talking from experience, was with someone where I left the sink wet, um, instead of like wiping it once I was done, brushing my teeth or whatever. I didn't know it was a thing.
Hmm.
I was like, okay, cool, no problem. He let me know. After that point, I, wiped the counter down after I was done and made sure it was always dry before I left the bathroom. And,
Hmm.
it was no big deal. I feel like if you are in someone's space, you
Hmm.
should respect the space.
Hmm.
And that same respect should be reflected back when they're in your space. So if at your house you want things to be a certain way, I'm going to behave like that at your house. Now, at my house, things could be a little bit looser. I'm not saying that they are, but just for example, I'm not going to expect you to do the same things that you do at your house at my house. Now, if you
Hmm.
choose to do that,
Right.
that's
Right.
cool or whatever. Understanding that, if our end goal is to merge lives, then I'm going to have to start taking up some of the things that you want so that
Hmm.
I can keep the peace so that we can actually live together. Because at that point, it's not going to be all about what I want or all about what you want. It's going to be all about what we want. And you may have a better process for doing certain things. I may have a better process for doing certain things.
Hmm.
So if my thing is, I want all of my clothes to be separated by color and separated by the material that they are and then washed, versus you just separate whites and colors,
Hmm.
or whatever. There's different ways of doing things. And I think we have to kind of find that balance so that, we can live together and not get offended just because
Hmm.
someone grew up a certain way that's different from me, and vice versa.
Yeah, I think I was laughing at one of our previous conversations while you were talking about that, where you were saying that you and your partner aren't both neat freaks. And I remember you and I talking one time about, I was like, yeah, you and I could live together, but there would be things that I'm sure that I know would drive me nuts, that and I don't know if there's anything that I have that would drive you nuts, but like little, and it's like little minor things that like
Mhm.
I'm like, why do you do that? Like you won't let the toilet paper get down to a certain level. You'll swap out when it gets down like to the last little bit. And I noticed that, I don't know if you still do that, but I noticed that like when I used to come and visit you, like you would swap out the new roll of toilet paper, and I'm like, oh, it's still toilet paper on this. Like this sitting this sitting all the way out. And you have this kind of organized chaos way of doing things. Like you know where every single thing is in your space. Whereas I gotta have labels on shit, and it's gotta all be in a container, and it's gotta be
Mm.
put away this way, et cetera, et cetera. So I was just laughing at that. So I think you have found a winner in the fact that both of y'all, that you don't have a me in that relationship. But as far as like goals for any relationship that I have, well, the two that I've been in, it's really more so about having those conversations and making sure that you know what you're trying to do and where you're trying to go with everything, and being honest and upfront about, okay, this is a little bit of a thing for me. This is a little bit of something, that bothers me. It's not bothering me to the point that I want to break up with you, but I'm just letting you know that this is what it is. For me, if there's little things like that, like somebody not necessarily picking up after themselves, like
Mhm.
I wouldn't mind picking up like every so often, like I've been in people's spaces where, there's something that is, they've left the sink wet, like you said. So I'll just wipe it down. No big deal. I'd rather do that than to cause a scene and make it an issue. But there have also been times where I'm like, okay, I need to say something because I'm doing this too much. Like I'm cleaning this too much, or I'm picking this up too much. So I think it's just really about having those conversations with the person that you're interested in, or that you're dating, or that you're in a relationship with, so that it's clear and it's talked about.
Yeah. I'm with you on that. I mean, because this is the person that we're hoping that you love. So you should be able to bring up these conversations, and just talk it out. Having those difficult conversations that really shouldn't be that difficult.
No, not that.
Aren't that bad. The more that you have. So if the worst thing about someone is the way that they hang the toilet tissue, you probably got a good person.
Pick your battles. Yeah, pick your battles, because that's not a battle.
Yeah, that's not a battle. Now, money's handling in situations like that.
That's
now that
battle.
may be a bit of a more complex issue that, you may want to address that one. But if it's something minor like that, I'm probably not going to make that big of a deal after I mention it. But nothing. I've never been in a situation where someone just did something that just drove me completely crazy. So
yeah, and like I said, nuts, but not like it wouldn't. There's nothing that you do that's like, oh my God, I can't stand when you do that. Like, no, it's nothing like that. But it's like, okay, that's interesting. Okay, that's interesting. Like, I wonder why he does that. Okay, whatever.
Yeah. All right. So last question here, then we're going to start wrapping things up. Is there a stage in the dating process that you think can be skipped or merged? And I feel, like I mentioned before, that little exclusive dating to official relationship transition is so small and can happen so rapidly. But I don't want to put people in, a relationship when they're not ready to be. But I feel like there's something there that I think can kind of really be merged together. And I think it just ends up, again, being a thing where it's nomenclature. It's just how we are using the terms and the words.
Yeah, I agree. That would be the place that I think could be, merged. There is the exclusively dating. But again, like I said earlier, the exclusively part is just the transition period between 2 points. So it's not like, it's like me coming to your house from my house. So that transition, however I get there, I don't care how you get there, just get here if you can. That's the exclusive part, So
all right.
So cool. I agree with that. I definitely agree with that. I think everything else is pretty kind of there. I think official relationship and long-term commitment. Again, I think we've got a transition period there. Like we've got an official relationship, and then the long-term commitment is the transition to marriage, or the final boss, the final evolution. So I think that long-term commitment and then exclusively dating can be looked at as verbs versus nouns.
Yeah, because I also feel like, once you're in that long-term commitment phase, and then with the end game, whatever that end game is going to be, the engagement marriage, once you decide that, hey, I want to marry this person, you get on the knee, they get on the knee, the rings are exchanged, whatever. By the time y'all, figure that out, most people, the only reason why they don't get married any faster than they do is because of money. And we haven't figured out where we're going to live.
Yeah. Do you think?
A lot of people get married a lot faster if they have the money and the ways and means for that, and a location for the wedding.
This could be a separate episode, but do you think that with us being gay men, do you feel like, you talked about getting down on one knee and exchanging rings and all that stuff? Do you think that because we don't follow traditional norms in terms of relationships that we should be doing traditional or having those sorts of doing those same sorts of traditions as far as getting down on one knee and proposing, and then bride sit on one side or the groom's family sits on one side, the other groom sits on the other side? Like, do you think?
I am a lot more practical when it comes to this, because this is something that, I talked about before, where I was with someone and we were looking at, the whole legal hoops and things that, you would have to jump through before, gay marriage was legal. So I look at it more as like a business thing. So we don't have to go through all that.
Okay.
I'm perfectly fine with going down to the courthouse and calling it a day. I don't need the pomp and circumstance. But as far as, the marriage or the proposal and all of that, I feel like that would be a discussion, because I feel like as two dudes, we don't have to go through I got to ask the dad and for the hand in marriage and all that, because that may not even be an option anyway. But I feel like if I'm interested in moving into that step, I'm going to just bring it up and be like, hey, so what do you think about us, doing the big one and getting married, and, what that would look like for us? Now, if we want to still do the whole, exchange of rings and things like that, that's cool too. But I'm gonna get your ring size. I'm gonna know what it is and whatnot, but I don't necessarily have to go through the whole mumbo jumbo. Like, it could be something like, hey, just to let you know, or let his friends know that, hey, I want to do this. I want to move it to this stage, and if I wanted it to be a surprise, I could, but I feel like we kind of had a discussion about this. So in our situation, we would probably end up just talking about it and being like, hey, well, let's do that. All right, cool. And as unromantic as that sounds, but I mean, I feel like it works. But then you need to know your person. If your person is more of the person that wants that heteronormative, like facsimile, they want the pomp and circumstance, they want to, he said yes, and they want the photographer following them and having the pictures and going on social media and doing all that. If your person wants that, give them what they want.
Okay.
No one should know that person's love language and how they deal with those types of things better than you. So yeah, if they want that, give it to them. I don't need that.
Right. Got you. Yeah. Me either.
All right. So we're going to close out the show now. So whether you are just talking, casually dating, or deep down in commitment, every stage of this dating journey and this dating life has its own lessons, challenges, but beautiful moments. But it's important to remember that there's no perfect timeline. There's just honest conversations. You can be milestone based like me. You can be chronological and time based like my friends.
Like me.
But whatever you do, just do what works right for you and your person and your relationship. Just make sure that you're not wasting anyone else's time, and most importantly, not wasting your time. All right. So before we go, I just want to remind you that we have a playlist on both Spotify and YouTube. It's the Just Drawz. Right. Just Drawz, the podcast, presents Cheekz and Beatz Spring 2025.
And so that's Cheekz, CHEEKZ, and Beatz, BEATZ.
Yeah, we'll have a link to that in the show notes, or probably a little pop-up that shows up on the screen. And we'll see what the production company decides to do with that.
Right.
Me, the production company.
Yeah. Him. That production company, yes.
So add that to your library. You get a little taste or a little listen to the type of music that we both like, and what we think represents spring, or what we're listening to right now this spring.
And actually, that playlist is on Apple Music as well. I actually put that under my account on Apple Music, so we'll definitely put a link for that for all of you iPhone users, or you all that have Apple Music. You can actually get that same playlist on Apple Music as well.
All right. Awesome. We love cross-platform compatibility.
Yeah, we are. That's what we do.
All right, fam, that's a wrap for this episode of Just Drawz. We hope you felt the love, laughed a little, and maybe even learned something new tonight.
And remember that the conversation does not stop at this episode. Follow us individually, follow our podcast on social media. Let us know your thoughts, share your stories, or just say, you know what, I need that.
All right. Until then, just be bold, just be beautiful, and most importantly, just be.
We'll catch y'all next time.
Peace.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. Now be sure to like, share, and follow us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, and Spotify at Just Drawz. That's JUSTDRAWZ. Until next time,